Good evening, everybody, or good morning, based on when you're watching this. Welcome back to Hoops
Yeah,
HD. This is the Hoops HD Report
let me out.
NCAA Tournament Special.
Let me
Da-
out.
David Griggs still in the puppet bunker
Please let me out.
until we have a national champion. David,
Why can't you could at least turn the lights on in here? You took my
no thanks.
camera away.
Well, we got to save money here. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined up top here by Matt Zukowski and Joby Fortson. Down below me, John Titel and the puppet David Griggs, and we saw it Sunday night. We saw the NCAA tournament field revealed. We waited an extra day even to record this podcast. We normally do it on Monday night, but we wait to see if there are any changes in the field. There were not any. The field is locked in now. If any team has to exit because of COVID, their opponent's simply going to advance. But before we get to the actual games, John, you are our selection committee guessing expert. I know you did not quite do as well this year as some prior years, but your thoughts on what the committee did as a whole overall.
I mean, I only got 67 of 68, so definitely a down year for me.
It was.
I thought it was good. I thought Louisville would get it instead of Wichita. I was wrong on that. I thought it was pretty good. There were a couple of teams. Missouri stood out to me. I think I had them like 3 seed lines away. Everybody else was either 1 or 2 away or on the money. I think the 1 seeds are great. And in general, I thought it was pretty expected.
Joe, what did you get? 62 within one of the actual.
Correct. And 47 of 68 were within 1 spot of their actual seed.
That is amazing. I think you're
You're
down a few points off of last year, so we're really disappointed in you. But no, that was seriously that is simply amazing.
Yeah, for that to be a down year, that's like going 12-1 and calling that a down year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Joby, your J&G ratings, how they stack up against the actual?
They are easily the best. I haven't run all of them, but I've run them against the majors, and I've eyeballed every one of them. Just hadn't done the statistics. It'll be the largest win by the J&G over other computer metrics ever.
Wow.
For some reason, KPI was really off this year. I mean, we're talking god awful, really off, but J&G was 67 of 68. The miss was Louisville for Utah State. And Utah State was only my second team out, so not a disaster of any proportions. And 40 seeds on the nose, and I can't remember 17, 18, or 19. So it was a high teens for one off, and so pretty good, and was better than last year by 12 points, or 2019 rather, by 12 points.
And Matt, the only team that I think has any case that they belong to that didn't get in was Louisville. I mean, I don't even know that it was a great case. I think it was a case, though. I mean, did you feel there was a big mistake by leaving the Cardinals out?
Not necessarily. It's one. I think when you had Georgetown and Oregon State take a couple of bids, I think, it was Louisville and Colorado State were probably the 2 biggest cases that didn't get in. And that, well, if they would have done better in their conference tournaments and had better luck in the Big East and Pac-12, they would have been here in Indy. But there's no one with a glaring case. And I like that. I hope that in the future, committee basically goes with selecting based off of like performance metrics, or selecting off of performance metrics, and then seeding off more of the predictive metrics.
Well, that's kind of what we heard this year from the committee, was that they really used the your actual results for selecting teams, but then they looked a lot more towards the predictive metrics when they came up with seeding. So maybe something to keep.
And Chad, just as a note, where the J&G missed, it was those predictive, like for instance, when you look at the resume, Tennessee and Missouri, 2 conference mates, are very close to each other, but their predictive metrics are very different, and the seeding was very different, 5 versus 9. So, I think that just looking at that microcosm within the SEC is a very good indicator of how they actually performed.
Yeah, I noticed you didn't ask me about Louisville, Chad.
No, I didn't. Because David, I don't want to admit that you were right about them all season. I absolutely do not want to do that. I'm going to go ahead here. If this works, we should see the bracket on the screen, or at least a blown up portion of the bracket. Did it work, guys?
Yes.
Okay, great. We're going to go region by region, which is why I've kind of blown up and focused in on the West region here on the screen. What I'm going to do is ask for 2 of you to kind of give me your thoughts on each pod. So there'll be each group of 3 games. So a pod, for example, will be Gonzaga down through Missouri, the first round games of the second round. And as we go, we'll fill in who our consensus is. If the two of you are very different, well, I've called a third person to act as a tiebreaker. And we will go like that through every game, and then we'll go out through the regionals and into the Final Four and eventually tell you who the national champion is.
Yeah, so we're actually going to fill this out.
We're going to fill this out. And David,
All right.
David, let me start with you. But before we start up in that first quad there with first little pod there with Gonzaga down through Missouri. But we have a first four game in there between Norfolk State and Appalachian State. I know most people don't need that filled out for a bracket, but your thoughts on that game that's coming up here on Thursday night?
Norfolk State is interesting. I thought that they had the highest ceiling out of everybody in the Meac, and Appy State was not a team we were really excited about at any point. They showed signs of being good, but I think most of our focus was on Georgia State or Arkansas State, or depending on the week. The Sun Belt was real topsy-turvy. App State wins the tournament. I'm going to go with Norfolk State here.
Okay. Well, Norfolk State might be the pick. Like I said, for most people's brackets, it won't matter. But Tacha, let me start with you at part of these two games. I assume you're going with the Zags over the winner of that Norfolk App State game. But what about this Oklahoma-Missouri game?
I am, although I would like to remind you that Norfolk State coach Robert Jones was an assistant on the Norfolk State team in 2012 that upset number 2 seed Missouri, just to file that one away. As far as the Sooners and the Tigers, it is a coin flip, as are all 8-9 games. I've been less impressed with Oklahoma the past month. They were like a 2 seed, it seems like, a month ago, and they've just fallen apart. They've had some injuries, I think. Austin Reeves, who's now healthy. Missouri had lost some games with Jeremiah Tillman away from the team. I believe there was a death in the family, if I recall, but he's back now. And even though I love Lon Kruger, I think I'm picking Missouri for this one.
You're taking Missouri. Matt, would you agree with him? Missouri is the pick here?
Missouri has a little more talent, but man, I trust Lon Kruger a whole lot more than Quanzo Martin.
So you'd go Oklahoma.
I would go Oklahoma. I don't feel real strong because I think I'd agree Missouri has the edge with Jeremiah Tillman especially. And actually, I really like their point guard, Juice Smith.
Well, Joe, you want to be a tiebreaker here?
The Tillman point's excellent, but it definitely, to me, it comes down to the coaches, and I like Kruger more. I actually think, Missouri has the chance to do some damage if they can get up. They might actually, because of their talent, they might be able to compete with the Zags better, but I'm going with Oklahoma in that specific matchup.
Okay. Do you think they have any chance to get by the Zags?
I don't think Oklahoma does, no.
David, do you think they have a shot against the Zags?
If Gonzaga misses the bus and doesn't get there till halftime, I don't think Gonzaga will beat them by more than 20.
David, let me stick with you. We'll go right to the next pod because that was a fairly easy one. This is a lot more interesting with Creighton, UC Santa Barbara, followed by Virginia, Ohio. Let's start with the Creighton UCSB because I want to go back to Joby on the Virginia game because they're an interesting case.
Well, this Santa Barbara team is really good. They're a live wire team. They have 4 losses on the year. 2 of those 4 were to the same team in about a 24-hour period. I attribute that to them just having a bad day. They blew out the Eaters in the conference tournament. They blew through their conference tournament. In Creighton, my thoughts on them in the postseason are well known. Chad, how about this? Rather than me tell you who I am picking, see if you can guess who I'm picking.
I think you're going UCSB.
Yeah,
it's a nice upset pick. Just Titel, 12/5. You agree? You on this board with this one?
I don't think this is the one for a couple of reasons. One, the Gauchos have not played anybody this year who's in the top 100. Secondly, even though Creighton got destroyed by Georgetown in the Big East title game, and they've had the whole Greg McDermott's comments thing, I think that they're going to use that as fuel because they don't want their season to keep falling down this spiraling toilet or whatever. I think they're going to rebound in a big way.
All right, Matt, you want to cast a tiebreaker vote then?
Oh God, that's a tough one because man, Creighton might have the biggest variance of any team in this tournament. Like their best is 1 seed good. Their worst, well, Saturday night in the Big East tournament. Like I'll go with Creighton just because I think if UCSB wins, it's close. Creighton wins, they might win by 25. Like
I would like to point out that when Creighton has played a 12 seed in this tournament, and it didn't go well.
It did not go well against Georgetown at all. Like their opponent will be the winner of a Virginia-Ohio game. And Joby, you are a Virginia guy, and right now 67 out of these 68 teams are in Indianapolis. One is not. It is Virginia. Do you have any news or updates on
Virginia,
what's going on with them?
Yeah, Virginia plans to fly out Friday midday in time to get tested. You have to get 2 tests in Indianapolis to play. Virginia has not been able to practice. They've been doing the Zoom thing, but evidently they will be able to practice on Thursday night and get another practice in Friday morning. It's not ideal, but it does get you 2 practices in, in preparation for Ohio. And when you look at the game as a whole, Ohio's actually not a great matchup for Virginia. Ohio's not the type of team that upsets Virginia very easily. There are other teams out there that would be a lot trickier. Maybe even Liberty would be to choose another 13 seed with Virginia ties and Richie McKay, or North Texas. Those are the 13 seeds that I think would stand a better shot here. Even though the Meac is strong, the Meac is straightforward, and Virginia beats straightforward, usually in a grinder. I think they'll be able to grind it out. They'll get just enough practices in. I do see Virginia advancing, but there's so many unknowns.
Do you see them getting by Creighton as well?
Yeah, I think Creighton's a mess. If you had asked me for the tiebreaker, the Gauchos would be on the phone.
What about that?
And here's the reason why. Georgetown loss, I think, could be a spiraling effect, as opposed Titel points out could be a rallying point, and it could. But I think that sort of thing, with everything that's going on, it could be a spiraling effect out. And I actually almost would feel more nervous, and I could eat these words. I almost would feel more nervous if the Gauchos were the team we listed there against Virginia, because that is the type of team that gives Virginia fits. So, but right now I'd go Virginia.
Titel, do you see Virginia coming out of this pod as well?
I do, but not because of Creighton or Ohio, just because their biggest opponent this week is COVID, and I have no idea what's going to happen. So if healthy, I think they're the pick, but I have no idea if they're healthy.
Right.
And let me add, if for our viewers who have not paid attention, there have been no additional COVID tests. And the one player,
no positive COVID tests.
No positive tests.
There's been lots of tests.
Yeah, there've been a lot of tests, but there've been no additional positive tests this time. And the one player in question is unnamed, but Boeheim let it out that he was a role player. So it is probably someone who's not completely ensconced in the rotation. We're not talking at the present time about Hauser, Huff, Kie Clark, or the names that our viewers might know.
Yeah, I think we got that whole pod wrong. I have the Gauchos over Ohio.
Okay. But David, we're moving on because we've had a majority vote. Matt, we've got in the next pod, we have the winner of a first 4 game between Wichita State and Drake. So quickly, your thoughts on that game, which I think is a fascinating game. It's going to be the first game. Well, I think that's the second tip of the tournament. Actually, the first one is going to be one of the 16 games.
Basically, how healthy is Drake? Is their best player Tate Campbell? Is he going to be playing in that game? Because if he is, actually, I like Drake to win. If not, I'll probably side with Wichita. But Wichita did not look all that good in the AAC tournament and almost lost their first game to South Florida. Did lose in the semis to a not great Cincinnati team where half the teams now transferred since that game. So I Drake is healthy or relatively healthy. I like them. Even under Drake gave Loyola a fairly solid game in the MVC title game. So I think I'll go with Drake either way.
You'd go with Drake. Would you go with the winner of this game, be it Wichita or Drake, over USC as well?
No, because that's my word. Like, I think Evan Mobley's actually a bad matchup for the big guy Darnell Brody. That he's too agile for him and he's taller and longer. That's a bad combo. So I think SC, even though I'm not Andy Enfield's biggest fan, either way, I think SC is getting out of that game.
David, do you think SC gets out of here too?
Yeah, I've seen Wichita State play really well this year. And I can't get past that, thinking that they have it in them to get past USC. But you would have never known that watching them in the American tournament. And those were games that they really needed to win. I mean, they ended up getting in, but we kind of had those circled as high stakes games against teams that were not anywhere near the bubble. Here they are playing Drake and USC, who's way inside the bubble. But Wichita's good. Wichita's best is pretty good. If you're going to me for the next one, I'm going with Mizzou's big former rival.
You were going with Kansas. I don't think there's going to be much debate on Kansas is going to beat Eastern Washington. But what about, I'm kind of upset we went with USC. I kind of like the idea of the Kansas Wichita State game. It would have had all the storylines. Not going to happen.
Very compelling.
But Titel, what about the idea of a Kansas USC game? Assuming, unless you want to pick Eastern Washington, I'll give you the shot there.
I don't, although fun fact, today is the 20th anniversary of Coach Shante Legan's first game as a player in the NCAA tourney at Cal back in the day. As far as picking this game, we need to pick some upsets, and we haven't done any yet. So I think I'm going to go with the Trojans, mainly because I don't know if David McCormack is going to play. I don't know if he's definitely out of this game, but he's been great the past month or so. And Mobley, I understand Matt's point that you don't love Andy Enfield. The fact is he knows how to win games early in March, right?
And Joby, Kansas hasn't played since they got shut down in the Big 12 tournament. Are they, maybe they get by Eastern Washington? Do they have what it takes to get by USC?
I think Kansas got to the bubble. They've been practicing. They don't care. They're ready. They can handle. They've got the depth to be able to handle and the strength to handle USC. Mobley is the real deal. He's the best big man in this draft and possibly in the country, but I don't like everything else around him. And I think Kansas has too much. Sorry to be chalky, but I do go with the Jayhawks.
I would add Kansas, no Jalen Wilson, though. He did not make the trip to Indianapolis.
So Matt,
I think
you could go with the upset, Matt?
I think I'd go with the upset. I think I'm going with SC here. Who knows? Andy Enfield will probably find a way to parlay this into another 8-year deal. But
Matt, let me stick with you. I assume you've got Iowa over Grand Canyon. We love the Lopes, but it's a 2:15 game. But if you want to pick that upset, or if you'd rather talk about Oregon VCU.
No, I think Oregon VCU is a real intriguing game too. I think similar teams that have a bunch of guys about 6'3" to 6'7", so kind of the modern game. I think Oregon has a little more talent. I'll side with Oregon to win, but that should be one of the better games. Probably might be in the mid to high 70s, fairly decent tempo to it, especially with VCU. So that'll be a fun game. I think Oregon gets by. I think they have a little more high-end talent. Chris Duarte, quietly one of the best players out west.
I'm just not that impressed with VCU, especially not away from home. I mean, our committee guessing expert was right on the money with them, I think. A lot of people were projecting them on this line. This is the line they ended up on. I argued against them in our mock committee. I just don't think they're that good, and I think Oregon is very good.
So, David, you have an Oregon-Iowa game in the second round then. And what do you like in the Ducks versus the Cyclones there? Not the Cyclones, the Hawkeyes. I'm sorry. That's the second time I've messed up a state name. I'm gonna get flamed for.
Ducks and Hawkeyes. It's tempting to pick Oregon, but I really liked how Iowa was playing in the latter part of the season. Their defense went from really bad to not as bad. If their defense is just fair, their offense is so efficient that I think they can get the win. But this one's going to be a war. I mean, of all the potential second-round matchups, I'm really looking forward to this Oregon-Iowa game.
So you're going Iowa. You go
Iowa, and the chalk continues. Although, in my own bracket, like I said, I had the Gauchos over the Bobcats.
Right, but Titel, are you there with the Iowa pick?
I am. I want to pick the Ducks, and if they had won the Pac-12 tourney, I would have picked the Ducks, not just to win this game, but to get to the Elite Eight. But when you face a Beaver team who's your in-state rival and you shoot 6 of 25 from behind the arc, when it counts, forget it.
Joby, that gives us a Sweet 16 matchups of Gonzaga, Virginia, and USC, Iowa in the West region. Who comes out of these games and makes it to the Final Four?
Well, the Zags will roll us. They're perfect matchup. I mean, I hate to sound that way. They beat us by a zillion before. They'll beat us again. It'll probably be closer because the Zags will take us lightly, ironically. We rolled this team before. I am down on Iowa for the statistical. I still don't think their defensive efficiency is caught up. Those sort of teams do not do well in March. I think Oregon will beat them, but the fact they'll get to USC, God, I don't like USC that much either. I mean, I would take Oregon and Kansas over either of these two teams. Right.
But if you had to pick one.
Yeah, and I had to pick one. I will pick I will go chalk then,
Okay.
because I'm not in love with USC right now either. And Zags, I mean, we're talking that bet the house on the spread on that one. They will beat them by more than they did in Iowa City.
Matt, are you with him that Zags beat Iowa in the West Regional Final with this bracket?
Yes, and I think I would actually personally come to the same regional final. Although, man, an Iowa USC game, Luka Garza and Evan Mobley, that'd be a heck of a matchup on the interior. But I think that's one SC because their tendency is to allow teams to take the three. And so that's a bad idea against Iowa. I still remember a year ago, Marcus Howard and Marquette just raiding threes at SC in a similar type of offense in that I think Iowa would get by them. Joe Wieskamp would probably have a monster game.
Well, we have one of our Final Four set then.
Look at the insight we have here.
We've got the Zags. I don't think it's any surprise. I think most brackets out there will have that. I think that West region is one of the easier regions to pick the champion of, at least. But let's scroll on down. Let's go down to the East region next.
That's a real easy one.
This is a very interesting East region. David, let me start with you. Quickens, any thoughts, first of all, on the Texas Southern Mount St. Mary's game? And then does that winner have any shot against Michigan?
I'll take the second part first. No.
Okay.
As far as the matchup, it's just the thing about Mount St. Mary's, even though they played in our favorite conference, they weren't really a team that we thought was contending to win the conference tournament. They looked really good in there, but so did kind of Texas Southern in theirs, and they did it on the logo. I know that, like, I'm one of the under the radar guys. I find that to be a particularly hard game to pick. Fortunately, I don't find the winner of this game being a hard game to pick, but I guess I'm going Texas Southern.
I like the way that Michael Weathers is playing for Texas Southern. He was lights out in that SWAC tournament. I would take Texas Southern here. Obviously, it gets crushed by Michigan, but Titel, interesting 8-9 game, though, between LSU and the Bonnies.
Yes, quick Texas Southern note. They just beat two teams who were undefeated in conference play back-to-back, Jackson State and Prairie View. Definitely pick them. As far as the 8-9, another coin flip. I think I'm going to go with LSU only because St. Bonaventure seemed very chippy against VCU. They also received some chippiness, so it wasn't just a one-way street. But I just didn't like the way that they handled being a champ. They didn't seem like they'd been there before. LSU, I saw them in the Sweet 16 in person a couple of years ago. They returned a lot of guys from that team. I'm going LSU.
Do you think they have any shot against Michigan?
Yes, only because, quote, Isaiah Livers suggests return for NCAA tournament would be miraculous.
Mm-hmm.
He's a huge part of their team. I understand that, like, Hunter Dickinson and Jawan Howard and possibly national coach of the year and stuff, missing Livers could be the missing piece for them.
So you'd go LSU, actually.
I'm thinking. I know we are. I will go LSU.
All right. We have a significant second round upset that works here. Joby, you're going to go along with him. LSU over the Bonnies and the Wolverines.
The reasoning is exactly what I would say. And yes. So yes, I think there's going to be a one seed that loses in the round of 32. It's almost inevitable that you get either a 1 or a 2 losing in the round of 32. I think this is it. You're not probably going to see me. Hell, I was promoting chalk on the last one, not promoting chalk here. And for the same reasons, there's experience at LSU and the Livers loss. Michigan hasn't had a lot of game time without him to get into the rhythm without him. So I'm going LSU.
I think that's fair. I think this East region is set up to be blown up by and somebody very strange raking the Final Four out of it. Matt, if we move on to the next pot up here, it's a fascinating pot of the Colorado-Georgetown game. I'm not that sold on this UNC Greensboro being able to compete with Florida State, but you can make that argument as well.
No, I like the chalk teams here both.
Okay.
I think Colorado is actually a really good team. You've got a great senior point guard, McKinley Wright. And then they've played at a tournament level for a couple of years now. Georgetown has had some wild rides and then had a great Big East tournament, but man, like teams like that, I think kind of crash back to earth when we get back here. I know we had a couple of years ago when Michigan won the Big Ten tournament as a low seed and then made a huge run in the tournament. But even that was a good Michigan team. That was like in the 20s and 30s in KenPom all year. This is a Georgetown team that wasn't as bad as probably people thought early on. They finished strong actually in the regular season too, but no, I like Colorado. I like Florida State. And that'd be a fascinating second round game.
Would you have Florida State winning it?
I probably would just on their talent.
Okay.
And I think the size and length, Colorado, that's what Colorado, not a real big team.
All right. Well, David, he went Florida State over Colorado in this little pod here. Are you with him?
For two of the three, I think Florida State rolls Greensboro. There's a lot of love for Greensboro. Part of that might be because we were expecting so much from them, and while they were good and won the league, they weren't as good as we thought they'd be. Georgetown reminds me more of the Oregon team from 2 years ago, the last time we had a tournament, than it does a lot of, to Matt's point, some of the teams that we've seen win conference tournaments and then flame out. Georgetown was beating tournament caliber teams in the latter part of the season, and then certainly in the conference tournament. I think that they were beating teams that were on par with Colorado, maybe arguably a little bit better, or at least as good. I think Georgetown wins that game, but I don't think they get past Florida State. I just think Florida State's rocking.
Well, we've got Florida State in the Sweet 16. Titel, you want to give us a tiebreaker vote on Colorado, Georgetown, especially because it's a Georgetown team that, I got to call you out on it. About a month ago, you told us that they were awful.
He wasn't.
They were. And they won 4 games in 4 days. It was I still can't believe it happened because
I can't believe I'm seeing the word Georgetown in this field right now. So go ahead.
This team lost the Navy at home in December, for God's sakes. Like, I put the stake in them and somehow they wouldn't die. Put them in. What the hell?
You're going for it. Let's do it. Let's keep it rolling with the Hoyas. I think Colorado is vulnerable. They also lost to Oregon State. Got to remember that. As did Oregon. Bringing us over to the next pod, where Joby begins with the marquee game from the first 4. One of the best first 4 games in terms of names we've ever seen in Michigan State.
I personally think Michigan State should not be in a playing game. I think Michigan State is a lot better.
But this, would you agree that this is in terms of the names of the teams, this may be the highest. This may be the highest rated, highest watched first 4 game ever.
You usually see Drake versus Wichita State. Yeah. I mean, that is, or Syracuse somewhere. I'm actually shocked Syracuse isn't listed, given their penchant for being right on the bubble in so many ways. UCLA has just, the wheels have come off. If they got past Michigan State, then that says a lot to me, because so I'm liking the winner of this game, which I think will be Michigan State. But I like the winner a lot to advance a little way.
Ooh.
And by the way, except for 2019, a play-in winner has won multiple games in the tournament every year.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I've seen brackets where I've seen Michigan State / UCLA in the Final 4 out there from alleged experts. I don't know that I'm going to be willing to quite go that far. I may cast my own veto if we could try to go that far today. But Matt, what about that? Can the Michigan State UCLA winner? I agree with Joby. I like Michigan State a lot. Can they beat BYU? And how do they match up, presumably, against Texas in the next round?
Both of them I think both of them probably have more raw talent. Like, I think Mark Pope has done an incredible coaching job at BYU, because I mean, he lost Jake Toolson, Yoli Childs, TJ Haws, and that's still, we even losing that, they're back and they're roughly the seed they would have been last year. So the fact that now Matt Harms, Michigan State knows very well, as former Purdue player, 7'3" big. That would give Michigan State some issues. They don't have the traditional big. They've previously had the 6'10", 6'11" bagger. So Harms would give him some issue, but the talent, I don't know. I'm gonna say BYU finds a way. I think Mark Pope quietly in the modern day is the best coach there. I know that's saying something about Izzo, but I think we're talking 2021, not 2011.
All right, so you would go BYU. Joey would go with Michigan State UCLA winner. Titel, you want to give us a tiebreaker here?
I do. It's the Spartans, and I like Mark Pope, but you know how many tournament appearances he's made before this year? 0.
Yes, I do.
Not wins, appearances. 0.
Yes, I do. 0.
How many has Tom Izzo made? Not that he's done much.
He's had a few tournament appearances. Yeah. David, I presume you're going to go with Texas. You could go Abilene if you'd like. And how do you like them against the Michigan State?
A lot. This Texas team is long. They're athletic. I think that while they didn't always play their best, They have the pieces when you look at teams that go on deep tournament runs, at least with their athleticism, to go really far in this tournament. And they were, I mean, they look great in the Big 12 tournament. I just have, I don't think, whether it's BYU or Michigan State, I just think Texas is playing like a 1 seed, even though they didn't have the 1 seed profile.
Right. So Joby, you like that also, Texas, or no?
I don't know. I think this team is, and this is it's the inconsistency of Texas that really kind of scares me. And the fact that, maybe the one upset of a good BYU team, as pointed out, Michigan State, and that's it. But I'll tell you, this is the type of team that, that Izzo does well against.
So you'd go Michigan State.
I'll throw Michigan State one more round.
Matt, you want to go Michigan State one more round too?
Yeah, I think I like that Texas team. I think they can play versatile with 3 guards. They can play bigger. I think the key is more minutes for Kai Jones, less minutes for Greg Brown. This is college, not the NBA.
All right, Titel, one more pod here in the East region, first 2 rounds. Alabama against Rick Pitino's return to the NCAA tournament, and we've got a UConn Maryland game.
Unless Rick Pitino is re-enrolling Antoine Walker and Walter McCarty, I just can't see him getting that done. As far as the Huskies and the Terps, Maryland does have the top strength of schedule, or one of the best, so they are well prepared for March. But James Bouknight, like I'm telling you, with him and without him, is night and day for this team. If he's healthy, they're winning.
And do you think they got a shot against the Tide in the second round?
They do have a shot because of James Bouknight. I also have heard a lot of coaches saying amazing things about Danny Hurley today, but I think Nate Oates is onto something special there. So it's possible, but I'm picking the Tide to keep rolling.
Roll Tide. Joby, you with him? Roll Tide over UConn?
Yeah, very similar thought. I think UConn could win that game. And I do agree that UConn's the team that advances. I feel very strong about that. There's a reason why the NCAA tournament boosted them a few seeds than what their resume would indicate, and that's because of Bouknight. And Alabama better watch themselves. Alabama, I think, is perfectly made to be a good tournament team this year. Petty needs to make his shots a little better to fully capitalize on it, but I think he will. They have other pieces that have stepped up in the meantime. Alabama in a close one over Connecticut, a much closer, better game. And if Connecticut were to win it, I'm like Titel, I would be far from shocked.
Chet, I would like to pick Maryland. I agree with what everybody said about UConn, but I just want Lee Del Vecchio to hear me pick.
David, let me go with you seriously though. We've got the East Regional Sweet 16 here. LSU, Florida State, Texas, Alabama. Who do you see coming out of this region and going to the Final Four if those are your 4 teams?
Texas.
Okay.
And their path would be, I think LSU, or I'm sorry, I think Florida State wins that game, gets to the Elite Eight. I just think that, again, they just seem built like a tournament team. This Texas-Alabama game is going to be a show. I mean, that's 2 teams that are Elite Eight caliber, but only one can get through. So I'm not like going to be shocked or insane or think that you're nuts if you're picking Alabama, but I just really like this Texas team. And then I think they take down Florida State.
Matt, do you like that pick, Texas over Florida State in the East Region Final?
I also think they lose in the Final Four and Texas fires Shaka Smart.
Yeah, I like Florida State over LSU. I definitely agree on that. Man, Texas, Alabama stuff. And I'm with them. I'm probably going to be picking UConn over Alabama in my bracket to zig a little bit to
Okay,
Zags.
but let's assume we get
we're
to this game.
Assuming Alabama gets through, I'm actually going to take Alabama to the Final Four. I think that might be their tough route, is losing.
And that's not a crazy pick. I mean, those are 2 really good teams.
Well, David, no, it's not a crazy pick to go with the 2 seed and one of the top 10 teams in the nation in the Final Four. I agree with you. Good insight.
Thank you. Well, about time I get some respect around.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think we got to go there. During championship week, we actually had a feature. It was our HoopsHD.com hot seat. For those that watched, David, and I did a little research. We actually forgot to reveal one of our people on the hot seat. He went through all these coaches here that are on the hot seat. We forgot one more person that's definitely on the hot seat. Oh, there he is.
Why am I on the
let's go ahead. But no, seriously, Joby. David says Texas in the Final Four for Florida State. Matt says Alabama. You want to cast a tiebreaker vote?
I'm feeling Alabama on that one if they can get past UConn, and I really do believe UConn's a big if. But if they get past UConn, I actually feel more confident over them against. Hey, Texas up and down could win it certainly, and I think Florida State will once again run out of gas. Florida State will be helped because of the bracket imploding a little bit for them. So Alabama will have an easier time in the Elite Eight game than I think maybe even the round of 32 game.
We'll just slide the screen over here. I think I should be centered on the screen a little bit better now. And let's jump over to the Midwest region. Tytel, let me start with you. At the top there with Illinois against Drexel. I'll assume you're going Illinois, but if you want to go the other way, and Loyola Chicago against Georgia Tech.
I do have Philly pride, but not enough to upset the Illini. As far as the 8-9 game, I appreciate you giving me all these 8-9 games. Very easy for me.
Putting the pressure on you.
Great stories. They're both conference turning champs. I'll go with the biased Josh Pastner pick as the fellow Wildcat, but Loyola could easily win that game because they are the best defensive team in the country.
Yeah, Matt, would you go Georgia Tech as well?
I'm sort of leaning that way. I think Moses Wright's a big problem for Cam Krutwig that I would have liked Loyola to get someone that also had like a 6'7", 6'8", undersized big. And then I think Wright might be a big athletic mismatch for Krutwig. And so that worries me. And if he gets in foul trouble, they got a decent young freshman big, but he's a lot like Krutwig and that little undersized kind of skilled. So I think I'm going to lead Georgia Tech, even though I will be cheering hard for the local team, but realistically, I'm going to get Georgia Tech winning.
They don't really have a shot against this Illinois team the way they're playing, do they?
No, I actually, it's weird. Is if Loyola wins, I think that would be a far tougher matchup for Illinois because you'd have the contrast of pace, contrast of styles in a slow down game in the 60s, for instance. Where Georgia Tech, they'll play at a real frantic pace, but Illinois might get them more to 75-80 and win like an 80-72 type game.
Yeah,
Joe,
I have to go with Loyola Chicago. I mean, that's who I would pick anyway, although I think it is a toss-up. But since Lee Del Vecchio was championing Georgia Tech all year,
David, again, you're on the hot seat, so I didn't call on you, so I could go to Joby for the next region just because you did that.
And you're right. You guys are right. The fact that Loyola slows down the pace helps because Georgia Tech's weakness is a lack.
But the reason being Lee Del Vecchio is the reason why. But Joby, fascinating 5-12 potential 4-5 game between Tennessee and Oklahoma State. But number one, can Tennessee and Oklahoma State get there past Oregon State and Liberty? And two, who to win that game?
I'm on the same reasoning that Matt gave. This is not Oregon. Oregon State is not Oregon from a few years ago. The bracket they made some key wins, but the Pac-12 isn't necessarily amazing. They won in-state where the rivalry kind of supersedes it as opposed to the talent on the court. You put your faith in Rick Barnes, you deserve what you get, I guess, but I will go with Tennessee. Oklahoma State, why are they on the 4 line is the way I look at it. They should be on. That's an underseed. I love Richie McKay. Love him to death. He has done a great job at Liberty, but Oklahoma State, this is a team that I might not pick them here, but if this team were to wind up in the Final Four because they are more than just Cade Cunningham, it would not shock me. Oklahoma State, I really feel strongly about them.
So you think they get by Tennessee also then?
Yeah, I would go the whole way. Oklahoma State to face Illinois.
David, what do you think about that Oklahoma State over Tennessee in this?
I think that's absolutely perfect. Good job, Joey.
Okay. Well,
I agree with the reasoning.
That made it easy, guys. So let me go back to Tytel then for the next pod. San Diego State and Syracuse, West Virginia, and the only team from the state of Kentucky to make the NCAA tournament, Morehead State.
Love it. A couple of things here. Even though Syracuse snuck in as usual, I recall that when they do that, they usually win in the first round. So
please don't recall. I have nightmares.
As do I, but the truth hurts. So let's advance the orange. As far as the other game, if Derek Culver goes down and Janai Broom goes for 40 points, it's possible, but I don't see either of those things happen.
Do you think West Virginia gets by Syracuse, or does Syracuse do it again and make a deep run?
Talk about Huggins and Boeheim. I mean, these are the kinds of things as a college basketball fan I love to see. I think that West Virginia is for real. They were this far away on the clock from tying Oklahoma State and sending it to overtime in the Big 12 tourney. So I got the Mountaineers.
Matt, what do you think about that? Mountaineers over the Orange.
Now, I'm going to do a real dangerous thing here. I'm picking a Mountain West team to the Sweet 16. I know that's generally not been a good call historically, but I like the San Diego State team a lot. I think Matt Mitchell and George Siakam will be good fits for the zone. Ball movement in, get it back out. Siakam can bomb some threes in. And then the next round, it'll be weird and versus a clear high major conference versus kind of like a quasi right between that high major and mid major line. But San Diego State will be the more physical team in that game. And I kind of like them. I think West Virginia is so reliant on the three that it's hard those teams to pick real far. So I'm going San Diego State to the Sweet 16.
David, you want to cast a tiebreaker here on the San Diego State Syracuse and game first of all, and then we'll go on to the second round game there.
This San Diego State Syracuse game is really hard to pick because, like Matt said, if San Diego State can hit from the outside and get their ball movement going, they can beat them. I would pick them to beat Syracuse, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Syracuse got out of this whole region. I don't think San Diego State gets by West Virginia. I think West Virginia, while they don't play the pressure defense, they're still real physical. And the one thing West Virginia does is rebound the ball. They get second, third, and fourth chances on their possessions. And I just think they'll eat the glass and win the game like they've been doing all year.
All right, so we'll go with West Virginia over San Diego State. It was not unanimous there by any means, which brings us, Joby, to the final pot in this Midwest region. The Clemson team that you championed all season against my Rutgers Scarlet Knights in the NCAA tournament for the first time in a gazillion years. And the winner gets the winner of a Houston-Cleveland State game that I might want to keep an eye on, actually, in the first round.
I'm not keeping an eye on that Cleveland State game, but I will shock the world and Chad, make you happy. I'm seeing Rutgers here, and the first time in the tournament, baby, in so many years. I think Rutgers can play toe-to-toe, man-to-man with the beat-em-up, slow-down style that Clemson will see. They've seen it in the Big Ten all year in some quarters and done quite well in seeing it, like when Michigan State wasn't on their game, et cetera. I think Rutgers is a very good matchup here. And, slow down, tall, lengthy. The Houston does have 5 Amir Sims, not just one like Clemson. But I think your Scarlet Knights could cause a lot of problems here. And I don't like the way Houston's playing. I really don't, even though they destroyed in the American, they destroyed Cincinnati. They didn't destroy, I still am not on this Houston bandwagon fully of, I think they're going to be shocked by the skill level of Rutgers and the depth of Rutgers. And
I'll tell
I'm
you
going with Scarlet Knights to make a run.
I'll tell you what, when I saw this bracket come out, I looked at it, I said, Rutgers, I thought we were going to be an 8 or a 9 seed. We coming in at 10, but then I saw the matchups. I said, we've got a real shot at the Sweet 16 here, a real shot. Titel, what do you think? Rutgers Sweet 16 over Houston?
Oof. I'm thinking. I kind of like that matchup only because of Houston's weak schedule this year. I agree with Joey that they haven't impressed me in terms of playing a top 5 team, but they did win the conference tourney and they did blow out Cincinnati. So I'll pick Rutgers only because it's you. But
well, that's good enough for me. David's reasons of Lee Delvecchio don't count. My reasons.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, that is how I filled out my bracket, but not on this show. I'm picking Clemson just because you like Rutgers.
Matt, that brings us to a Midwest Regional Sweet 16 of Illinois, Oklahoma State in a fascinating one, and West Virginia ending Rutgers' season at that point, I think very easily, quite honestly.
Illinois, Oklahoma State would be a real fun game. I've got some doubts that Oklahoma State makes it there, but saying that they do, I still think the Illini, they'll find a way. And of that. For the heck of it, because I'm not huge on West Virginia either. We'll give Rutgers another game.
Oh, wow,
No.
whoa. Okay. Well, we gotta get 2 out of 3. So, David, let me go back to you here. Are you with him that it is Illinois and Rutgers coming out of the Sweet
No,
16 round?
I'm with him on half of that. I
Illinois.
think it's Illinois and West Virginia. And
What do you like in that Illinois-West Virginia game?
Illinois. This Illinois team
Oh,
is just smoking hot right now.
Yeah, Joby, you with him there?
Yeah, and
Illinois.
I think the
Illinois over
winner
West
of
Virginia.
Illinois, Oklahoma State would go to the Final Four. I think they'd be. Oklahoma State just walked into Morgantown and won recently. I mean, I think the underseed is criminal, and that's the only reason Illinois would not be able to do it. Illinois is the best team in this bracket, though. Illinois is playing well. They've got one of the best players in the country. They can go inside, outside, which is always a key factor on a team that makes a Final Four. They got that in spades.
Right.
Love it.
The other thing about Illinois is like the little dents on their bracket all seem to happen earlier in the year. They have a 1 seed profile that was playing its best at the end.
Yeah.
They are so good.
Agreed.
So let's jump up now to the last of the regions, the South region. And Titel, I was going to go to you next, but I give you all the 8-9 games. So let me start with Matt, and then I'll come back to you in a second here. I'll give Matt the shot, the 8-9 game here on the North Carolina, Wisconsin. And again, if you want to tell me Hartford's going to beat Baylor, go ahead.
Definitely not brave. I'm not pulling a pen over Kansas this year. So no, I like Baylor there. I like Baylor fairly comfortably in the Sweet 16. North Carolina with Mets won. North Carolina, the clear talent edge, but man, again, if Clemson is or Creighton's the most variable team or variance of performance in this tournament, North Carolina might be second. Like they're good, is really good. Like protected seed good. They're bad. Well, I saw they're bad. A 13-14 Marquette team blitzed them in Chapel Hill. So
you going whiskey?
I'll probably go whiskey just because the more consistent team, if you got to bet on something, I'll stick consistently decent over maybe very good, maybe awful.
David, you agree with that? Baylor over whiskey?
Whiskey, North Carolina is a tough. Yeah, I would go with North Carolina in that one, but I agree Baylor wins it.
Okay.
It is a toss-up. I just think North Carolina is playing a little bit better right now.
Joby, North Carolina, Wisconsin. Want to cast a tiebreaker vote?
I don't have faith in North Carolina in this sort of situation because the lack of guard play hurts you in March. The sad thing is you look at the other 8-9 games, and you ranked all 8 teams in those 8-9 games. These might be at the bottom. And it's a shame. I would, so I'm going by, I like Matt's reasoning on the consistency. You know what you're going to get from Wisconsin. I
don't want to admit this, but you have changed my mind. I had originally picked North Carolina, but listening to that reasoning, it's whiskey.
Titel, we have a fascinating 5-12 game, I think, in this Villanova-Winthrop game of a Winthrop team that only lost once all season. It's a Villanova team that is playing god-awful since Colin Gillespie went out with his injury. And so do you think that Villanova can even get by this Winthrop team?
They can, but like.
Do you think they're going to? Let's go that way.
Talked about injuries like Isaiah Livers and perhaps all of Virginia with COVID, but like this is the thing. You said it very well. Colin Gillespie, with him, they are a contender. Without him, they're nothing. Winthrop, DJ Burns, who I got to interview last week, he's not just like a good mid-major player. In high school in South Carolina, he was the 3rd best prospect. The top 2 in the state, Zion Williams and Ja Morant. He is a big-time player, and I think that Winthrop gets the job done.
You think they can win 2? You think they can beat the winner of Purdue, North Texas?
They can, except I really like the Indianapolis factor. I still don't know exactly how it works in terms of what court and how many fans and stuff.
Purdue will not be playing on their home court. That was already announced. I think they're playing in Lucas Oil actually the first round.
To a home court advantage to be in the city where you're kind of around. So I will have Winthrop on top, Purdue down below. I think Purdue advances just because they have the size. Not that Jeremiah Robinson Earl is small, but when you have Zach Edey going against DJ Burns, it's kind of a mismatch. Not to mention Travion Williams.
Yeah, you like that pick too? I like it actually. Purdue over Winthrop.
Yeah, I do too. This is a live wire North Texas team. I don't think they beat Purdue. It's kind of unfortunate that of all the 4 seeds that they got the Boilers, because I just think Purdue's playing really well right now. But you will watch this game, and I think that if you hadn't watched a lot of Under the Radar, you're going to be like, man, North Texas is pretty good.
All right, so we'll go with Purdue over Winthrop. And Matt, how about this? Actually, let me go to Joby, and then Matt, I'll give you the last one because I'll give you the first one here. So Joby, how about this Texas Tech, Utah State, Arkansas, Colgate pod? Colgate team that also only lost one game all season.
That not the same as Winthrop, because Winthrop has the win over Furman, and Winthrop actually has played some teams. You know, their out of conference schedule strength was, I think, 25th or so, somewhere in that range. So Winthrop played some teams in their prep, and they can beat a Villanova even without, you know, especially with Gillespie out. That's not the case here. Arkansas should handily take care of Colgate. Texas Tech. I'm not on the Utah State. I think they got lucky to finish second in the Mountain West, thus beat out Colorado State. They beat Colorado State, but I think they're lucky in how the timing of various games happened to be wind up here. I'm in shock they're not in the first four, to be very honest. If we talked about Syracuse, I'm sorry, Michigan State would roll this Utah State team. So I think a better Texas Tech team than Michigan State will definitely roll Utah State. The interesting one comes next. I think Texas Tech goes all the way through because that's how much as good a coach as Musselman is. I have that much more respect for what Beard can do in the tournament.
I'll tell you, Matt, that's a fascinating. If we get that Arkansas Texas Tech game, it's a great coaching matchup. What do you think? Do you think we get that game? And do you agree with Joby that's Tech?
Yeah, I think either way, I like Arkansas coming out of there. Man, it's the Texas Tech Utah State is. I like the Texas Tech team. They're of course the Chris Beard, tough, hard nose, but man, they will be giving up a lot of size on the inside to Nemus Kana, and I think Beard will get out just enough of a game plan to get him by. But it wouldn't shock me either that Kana gets off to a good start and they adjust, and then Utah State shooters like Beard and Brock Miller that hit some threes, and all of a sudden you might be looking. It will be a fairly low score game, I think, either way, but like Utah State may be winning a 68-62 type game. But
all right, so we got a discrepancy here. Tytel, do you want to cast a tiebreaker first on the Texas Tech Utah State question here?
Chris Beard has been in 3 tournaments before. He wins an average of 3 games each time he makes the tourney. Let's advance the Red Raiders.
Once or twice?
Twice, please.
Twice. All right. So you're with Joby out there. I really like this Arkansas team. I mean, I think this Arkansas team is a potential Final Four team in my personal bracket, but it's tough to get by Texas Tech in any NCAA tournament too, Joby, as you well know. But David, how about Florida Vatech and Ohio State Oral Roberts?
Let's just go. Like Oral Roberts has a really spectacular player. Unfortunately, Ohio State has about 6 of those. I think Ohio State rolled. Ohio State's one of those teams that I've just been really, really impressed with. Vatech, I've been bigger on them for most of the year than other people have. In fact, I was a little surprised that they were seeded this poorly given some of the wins on their profile. I'm going to go with them, and then I'm going to go with Ohio State. I just think that they're damn good right now.
Joby, you agree with that? Ohio State over
I
Vatech.
do. And
okay.
This is not an ACC bias on the Virginia Tech Florida game. I think Virginia Tech was underseeded, undervalued. Hey, I'd love to pick against Virginia Tech given my background, but I think that they are legitimately the better pick here. Aluma should be able to dominate the inside actually against a good Florida team. It is a good Florida team, deserving of a 7th seed, but I think Virginia Tech is better right now, but then you're going to get a wake-up call against one of the best teams in the country, the 5th team in the country, Ohio State.
Now, question: did Omar Payne face a discipline for what happened in the Tennessee game, or is he still going to play? For when he got the knockout shot at Fulkerson?
That is a question we don't seem to have an answer to, and I don't know. I've not heard anything yet. It might still be something that comes out even tomorrow here, so it's something to pay attention to if he's not able to play. Even more for Vatech in this game, obviously. But John, South Region Sweet 16 would be Baylor, Purdue, Texas Tech, Ohio State. Do we get an all Big 10 championship game? Do we get an all Big 12, or do we get a one of each?
Excellent question. Even though Baylor lost in the conference tourney, it was close, and they have like 5 guys who make 40% from behind the arc. and a coach who's been doing this for a long time. Not that Matt Painter is any spring chicken. So I got Baylor on the top. As far as the bottom, this is a Ohio State team that took one of the best teams in the country, Illinois, to overtime after being down 17 points in the first half. I think the Buckeyes are legit.
Oh, yeah.
And do you think they could beat Baylor then?
Tough call. I think it's a coin flip, but we can't have all one seed, so let's go Buckeyes.
He's going Buckeyes over the Bears in the South Regional Final. Are you with them?
I am.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. I like this Baylor team a lot, but I just I don't know. I just had it's more of a feeling than anything else that just that Ohio State has it in them to beat them, and I really liked how they played against Illinois, who I think right now is better than Baylor.
Well, that gives us a Final Four here. If we can get the whole thing on the screen, I think just barely. There we go. Joby, let me start with you. Let's do one game at a time here. Starting the left side there, Gonzaga, Alabama. What do you like?
I mean, I'm going with the number 1 team in the country. I see no reason not to. I love the way Alabama plays, but at some point the run's going to come to an end, and why not pick the best team in the country? And they are the best team in the country, Gonzaga.
Matt, you with him?
Yes.
Okay, that's fairly easy, Matt. So let me stick with you, Matt. Let you start off the Ohio State Illinois discussion here.
Well, first, Matt, I would have loved to see an Illinois-Baylor rematch, especially because I think Illinois is a much better team than they played in November. But if we have to have Illinois-Ohio State on that, I'll go with the Illini again. I think the talent edge is bigger than you would think, given they're similar fish in the same conference. But man, like the top end talent, the Sunmu, Coburn, and even Curbelo, man, that kid, he took his advantage when DeSumo went out, and now he's a force too. And he's closing games now. Those two, you got Frazier to hit outside shots, and then DeMonte Williams, man, Frank's kid has become a reliable 3-point shooter, and he gets a lot of opportunities given the focus on the other guy. So I like the Illini here.
David, you with him on the Illini?
Yeah, that's who I had in the finals.
All right. Well, John, let me ask you: Gonzaga, Illinois national championship game. Do the Zags win it?
They don't.
They don't.
They are the best team in the tournament, which is why it's going to sound weird. But I've seen undefeated teams come and go, and come and go, come and go, and they haven't won since '76 with the Hoosiers. Illini.
You're going to Illini. Joby, would you agree with him on the Illini in that game?
I'll tell you, it is a lot closer than, a lot of the public would like to think. I am saying history's made. History is, streaks and all that sort of thing are made to be broken. Well, I think 44, 45 years is long enough to say a streak is worthy of being broken. And so I'm going to go with Gonzaga. The uniqueness we talked about, I love inside-outside combo play. They've got inside, outside, and middle. I mean, it's just awesome. Not that Illinois is not, but Suggs will be the difference for me. And but Illinois is a great team. I'm not an awful an awful pick at all by Titel, but I'll go the cheap number 1 overall pick.
Matt, would you agree? Would you go Gonzaga or would you go Illinois?
I'm going for history and hopefully knock Mr. Robert Montgomery Knight out of the history books and have that be Mark Few being remembered. I'm really hoping for that and going for the Zags.
How about you,
Quinn
David?
Buckner's champagne will sit there the whole time and never be up.
How about you, David? Gonzaga, Illinois?
I'm going with Gonzaga because if a record is going to be broken, it would probably be in a year like this when there's COVID and you can't have the celebration for it. Plus, when the record is broken, I want to hear all of the people dispute it. Well, they didn't play a full 31 game season. Like they didn't get all their bye games, and we don't know they would have won all those.
They play in the West Coast Conference. They definitely would have won bye games.
Yeah. I think anyway, but that's going to be sort of the argument. But Illinois is really good.
I'll tell you what, I've got the whole bracket there on the screen. I know it's a little bit small to get the whole thing on there, but we did end up with Gonzaga winning it all, Illinois, Ohio State, Alabama in the Final Four. But let me ask each of you now, who would actually be, I know that we kind of went with some consensus, so some of your picks got knocked out. Go through each of you, who your actual Final Four and national champion is, putting aside what we did here tonight. Matt, let me start with you on that question.
I got Gonzaga, Baylor, Illinois. So there's the chalk.
Mm.
And hey, I said it about a week ago, and I'm sticking with it. I'm going for UConn as my other Final Four team. There's going to be one wild one in there, and I'm looking at that region. You got a Humboldt, Michigan, you got Alabama, who's not really been there before, and I think you got a very good coach and a star player. I'm taking UConn to be the kind of surprise one.
The Zags to win it all, though?
Yeah, Zags over Illinois. Actually, I have that game. I think Illinois gets by Baylor this time.
John, what about you?
I like Illinois to win it all, although they're going to have a very tough road because of Cade Cunningham and Bob Huggins. I think Gonzaga is a near slam dunk for the Final Four and probably for the title game. With Isaiah Liver's injury, I really think the Alabama-Texas winner is going to go, but I have no idea who's going to win that because I think it's going to be one of the best games in the Sweet 16. And as far as the South region, Baylor's really good, but like the Buckeyes are too, so I think that's a coin flip as well. At gunpoint, I'll go with the Buckeyes, but it could easily be Baylor. So I'll go with Gonzaga, Texas, but it could be Alabama, Illinois, and Ohio State, but it could be Baylor.
All right. And you got Illinois winning it all. Joby, what about you?
I think we've done pretty well here at the top end. I have quibbles in the Sweet 16, so it's not worth mentioning. I will say Baylor for Ohio State. Baylor, all those shooters, all that length, this is their time in a lot of ways. And here's the other thing is you don't give Ohio State a lead. We talked about Ohio State's comeback in the Big Ten. As our friend Kyle Lamb would point out, thank God they weren't up 17, because then they wouldn't have made it to overtime. I think Baylor will exploit that sort of mental component. Remember, they didn't win the game against Illinois. So I think Ohio State, while they Elite Eight makes a lot of sense in this bracket, I think Baylor will come out ahead. That being said, Illinois is playing better than almost anybody else, as we all said, except for that undefeated Gonzaga team who has not been tested. I like our final, and as I already indicated, I like our champion.
David.
The championship game I had identical. I actually have the Final Four. I have Gonzaga and Texas, which is a bit of maybe a crazy pick. But I just think Texas is built to go deep, and I just like how they're playing now. They're sort of on a run. I had some other pieces of picks that weren't as chalky, but they sort of didn't get past the earlier rounds. I have Illinois and Texas Tech, and I know Texas Tech is a 6 seed, but it just seemed like every time that I looked at the matchup, I liked what they had to do, and I was impressed with a lot of what they did this year. And it isn't that crazy. We've seen 5 and 16, seeded teams in the Final Four before. It isn't what a pick that a lot of people are going to have, but I could see them getting back there. They've had a lot of postseason success before, but yeah, I have Gonzaga over Illinois.
I'll tell you, I'm going to be the crazy one here. I didn't even give my picks as we went forward here, but I see Gonzaga in the Final Four. I see Gonzaga in the national championship game. I see them losing there to Baylor. That is my national champion. I think a Baylor-Gonzaga game would be a great game. Before they get there, I've got 2 teams that are coming out of here. I think Illinois, I agree with you, Illinois is playing great. I think they get knocked off by Oklahoma State. I've got Oklahoma State in the Final Four.
Ooh.
And I've got Florida State in the Final Four. I think that Alabama-Texas game takes so much out of those 2 teams that 2 days later, Florida State knocks off that winner after they cruise over a team like LSU to get to the Elite Eight. So that's my Final Four. On that note, real quick, a couple other things here. First of all, the NIT is out. I should have the NIT bracket on the screen right there. David, any thoughts on this event at all?
I kind of would have liked to have seen Belmont get in.
Very disappointed that Belmont did not get a bid. That was very upsetting to me, I thought.
Yeah, and they're criticized because of their lack of strength of schedule, and that's legit. But what's really unfortunate is that they had a tough schedule. Their exempt tournament got canceled. Some of their other early season games got canceled. I kind of wish and this is not a championship, it's an invitational. I kind of thought that they fit the definition of a team that should have been invited and weren't. But as far as who I like to win this, I like the way Memphis is playing right now. I could see them doing really well in this event and benefiting from it. I'm going to go with Memphis.
All right. Yeah, I think, okay, great. Belmont had an awful schedule, but a 15-14 Mississippi State team, do you really need that team in there over a 26-win Belmont team? It's kind of
Or even that
ridiculous.
like 14-9 A10 team, a 14-9 WCC team. I mean, that
I kind of like, I think I think there's reasons to take a Davidson and Dayton, even in Richmond, but not to take Mississippi State. That really doesn't make sense to me. Joby, we also had the CBI. Got any thoughts on this great, wonderful matchups here? We got, gosh, I like the Bellarmine game in the first round. Actually,
Yeah, it's a lot. I think there's a lot of fun because a lot of teams get an opportunity. I don't know why Longwood. I guess they were the only people who could answer the phone.
Same with Stetson, yeah.
Yeah, on that. I actually think I was impressed with Pepperdine in the West Coast Conference this year. They showed a lot to me. They have, they even when they were getting blitzed, they hung in there and didn't get even more blitz, so to speak, by Gonzaga, and they showed some strength on the return trip. So look at Bowling Green, because Bowling Green's a good MAC team. The MAC is solid this year. So Bowling Green's not going to be afraid to play multiple games over and over again. They start off light against Stetson, but Pepperdine is the most talented team, and I think you're going to see the Waves make it all the way through, probably against Bowling Green.
Stetson and Longwood have got to be two of the weakest teams to ever actually play a postseason.
I will tell you what here. It is time for the reveal of the 2021 AC8 tournament presented by HoopsHD.com. And as you can see from the screen, David, we are playing in a bubble.
Yes. Safety first, we guarantee no positive tests.
No positive. There will be no tests, but you don't need one when you are in a giant bubble. Each player gets their own bubble. I mean, can we be safer than that? Now, as you know, this is an AC8, therefore there are 9 teams in the tournament because that's the way we do things here. And let's start off with our team that gets a bye all the way to the championship game here. It is, of course, our front range champion, Colorado State, who has declined their NIT bid and is going to the AC8. Breaking news here.
I think Nico Medved was a huge fan of the Atmosphere and the Gladiators.
Now, we have a bunch of regions here for our other games here. We start off with the Wynwood Cup region. Yes, it is the one, the only, the Wynwood Cup.
Yeah.
This is the 3rd edition, isn't it?
This is the 3rd edition of this year's Wynwood Cup. I know that Winthrop allegedly made the NCAA tournament. I don't care. I've also heard they've taken down that bid. Winthrop and Longwood. There's actually an O in Longwood. I spelled it wrong. We'll fix that later. But that is the Wynwood Cup region.
Chad, have you reached out to these teams?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
None of them got back to me to say they would say they were not going. That means they're coming.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We have our Centenary Stallings region. We always like to have this here every year. Denver, our Centenary Award winner, worst team in D1. Iowa State, even without a head coach, there they are.
I think
they'll have one by the time they get the.
I think they got TJO on board. They're ready to get some momentum, and hey, an ACA title to get the TJO ring going.
Have we always had that region?
We are now. We do now. Now we've got our let's finish the season region. These are 2 teams. Now there were 3 strong contenders for this region.
Yeah.
We went with Howard. Maker was such a big surprise. Probably healthy by now. Let's get Howard some games in here. And it was a tough call between Maine and this team, but Chicago State, they tried to dunk the Centenary Award by canceling their season. They got to get back on the court and maybe find a way to beat up with Denver somewhere later in this tournament.
Interestingly enough, we haven't revealed the whole field. I think this is stacking up to actually be stronger than the CBI.
Titel, this next region is for you. This is the We Are Better Than Gonzaga region. And I need your call on which of these 2 teams is going to win it and whether or not you think they have a shot against the Howard Chicago State winner. These are teams that are actually better than Gonzaga. The 95-96 Chicago Bulls, the 16-17 Golden State Warriors.
I'm actually still waiting for the Let's Start the Season region featuring the entire Ivy League. But if I had to pick between these 2, I'm going with Jordan over Steph.
You're going with Jordan over Steph. Do they have a shot against Howard or Chicago State?
It's an
It's going to
instant
be a tough
rivalry.
matchup, though.
Depends if Maker's healthy or not.
Oh, we also have.
I mean, Jordan is 50 now. I mean, and I don't know if BJ Armstrong's talking to him anymore. So yeah.
we have a Meac bonus game. Those that remember the Meac tournament back about 15 years ago or so, they had a couple of transitional teams. They would bring those transitional teams to the Meac tournament, and on their championship day, they would play a bonus game, a regular season game between those two teams. They would play each other. I mean, the idea here was let them participate in the conference tournament. They'll get a game in. It was called the bonus game, and it was one of our favorite features of the Meac tournament back in the day. So we always have to have a Meac bonus game, and this is going to be a real tough call as well. Two of the big storylines throughout the season. We of course have Shaka Smart's hair versus Frank Martin's lack of hair. Here we have it, the 2021 ACA tournament. They played in a bubble. On that, now let's go to their final thoughts. Matt, let me start with you on anything from the season.
Well, I say I'm going for the postseason, baby, because I always love the coaching carousel. Would like Marquette to get out of that this year, but hey, they're showing resistance so far. But man, like Iowa State fired a coach Monday, and then according to the Las Vegas Review Journal, already has a coach on Tuesday. And that so that you see the movement there. A little surprised. I know things got touch sour at Utah, but man, Larry Kagan in the axe. He would be an upgrade at Marquette. There's probably a lot of people who would be. And then also credit for Richard Pitino, unemployed for less than a day. Go from Minnesota to New Mexico. So hey, got some fun here. I think there'll be some more. And who knows if there's ever fallout from the FBI stuff, there could really be fun.
Yeah, well, I think we have some crazy. I do not think we're done with the coaching carousel. Looks like it's going to be a busy one this year. Indeed, Joby.
Well, I think it's the question everybody else. I'm just going to hope that we can get all 67 games in the bubble. Let's hope that it's happened. I am in David's world of we probably should have thought better about the schedule. I think TV would have worked for you as long as you avoided the Masters for CBS because they don't have anything else coming down the pike that would compare. But we're here now. Let's all wish and hope and pray for a healthy, exciting tournament.
I could not echo that more. I absolutely agree. John.
Echoing that, for a Penn and Arizona alum, it has not been my favorite basketball year of all time. But compared to where we were 365 days ago, I've never been more excited for a 12:15 p.m. tip-off on a Friday afternoon than in March than I have in my life. So can't wait for Virginia Tech and Florida. Don't care who wins, just can't wait for Virginia Tech and Florida.
I'm so excited about Thursday night, that Michigan State UCLA game. It may not count in most people's brackets, but I think it's going to be a fun game at least. Maybe Wichita State Drake as well on Thursday night. But one quick note, David, before I go to you to finish off the show, if you are looking for an actual printable bracket, go up top here, click on the 2021 NCAA tournament bracket. You can go ahead, print it out, copy it, give it to all your friends, use it for your pools, whatever you want to do with it. If you want to see the results of what we did tonight, I'm going to put it down here in the post below us as well. But David, you want to finish out the show?
Yeah, I decided, should I make this point now, make it after the tournament, or make it twice? I've decided to make it twice, so it will be repeated. This was not an easy season. And when you're watching on television, I don't think everybody realized just how hard and how tedious it was to play a season. There were incidents to where you would be 8 hours into a 9-hour bus ride, get a phone call and your game's canceled and you got to go back. A lot of schools needed to spend money on 2 buses instead of 1 for social distancing. There were no holidays. There normally aren't, but these kids couldn't go home because they're still playing games. But on top of that, their parents, whether they came to campus or not, they couldn't be around them. A lot of them haven't seen their families in over a year, other than the wave at them from the court. This has been hard. This year's NCAA tournament is hard too. They're away from class for at least a week, maybe longer. But I still think it was great that we had the season. I think it was a great diversion for the fans, even though it was frustrating at times when games were canceled or postponed. I think for at least college basketball diehards like us, we were glad with what we got. I'm glad we're getting the tournament, but it was also important because the NCAA going forward with it, they're going to go through with the full payouts. A lot of programs, a lot of other sports will be able to stay open and stay operational because of the money that the tournament will supply them. I don't think that you can thank these players and coaches enough all year long, regardless of how the teams did, for getting this season through. And I hope we never have to do it again.
I hope so too. And it's just amazing the commitment that we've heard them making, locked in the bubble there, unable to leave their rooms or at least their floors, having to deal with some lousy meals from what we hear. And quite frankly, the NCAA has enough money. They should be giving these kids good meals. I have no problem with them complaining if they're not getting a decent meal there. But on that note, on behalf of, let's see, we've got John Titel and Matt Zakowski up top here, Joby Fortson and David Griggs below. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We will be back, I think, next week on Tuesday night, because the games will be going through Monday. Next week on Tuesday night to recap the first 2 rounds and take a look at the Sweet 16 going forward. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you again real soon.